Now, I'm not going to continue the endless lionisation of Margaret Thatcher. I do believe that she was a towering figure of the last century, and without her leadership, the UK would have been a very, very different country. But I wanted to focus on some of the things that have been said that are on the negative side about Margaret Thatcher. It's pretty obvious those idiots who were out protesting, or people buying Ding Dong the Witch is Dead on iTunes, are fools, and those people have no genuine idea of what a great woman this was. But those are the idiots on the edge. I want to talk about somebody who can do some real damage. What about Bob Carr? Last night on the ABC, this bloke is Australia's chief diplomat, and he decided to go on television and tell a private story about Margaret Thatcher, making her out to be a nasty old lady. Have a look.
And she said, "You'll end up like Fiji." She said, "I like Sydney, but you can't allow the migrants," and in context she meant Asian migration, "to take over. Otherwise, you'll end up like Fiji, where the Indian migrants have taken over."
Now, what a classless performance from, as I said, this country's foreign minister. This is not just a bloke who once met Margaret Thatcher and was making the most of a media day where anyone who had any connection to her was going to get 5 or 10 minutes on the radio or television. This is a current serving representative of Australia to the rest of the world. Now, as we have seen, and perhaps this is maybe one of the better things that WikiLeaks has done over the past little while, is that Bob Carr is an interesting figure. He's a bloke who, for years and years, has been telling the Americans what he really thinks about the way this country was being run, particularly during the Whitlam era. But also, what does it say about Bob Carr and just how solid a bloke he is, that the second somebody dies, rather than just towing the line, saying nice things and coming up with policy reasons to say he had a problem with Margaret Thatcher, he turned around and told us a version of a story that obviously she can't defend. Unless we know somebody else who was involved in that conversation, we just have to take it at face value that Bob Carr, well, this is 100% the correct version of that conversation. Well, I'm sorry. Anyone with a brain doesn't trust Bob Carr, and anyone with a brain who has even spent 5 minutes looking at politics takes most of what he says with a grain of salt. Remember, this is the bloke who was more than willing to run around Canberra telling people Julia Gillard needed to go, until one journalist decided to actually change him from an anonymous source and start naming him as a bloke who wanted to get rid of Julia Gillard, and then suddenly, no, nothing to see here. I never said it. No one believes you. Now, Bob Carr should behave far better than that. The Prime Minister should have kicked him in the backside. But of course, they'll all just be sniggering because it was somebody from the other side of politics, not their side of politics. He should know better, and honestly, we should expect better of somebody who represents our country in the world of diplomacy, for God's sake.